The first lazy narrative I want to talk about is that the Boston Celtics are somehow better without Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie joined the Celtics in 2017-2018 season via a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Kyrie, he would play 60 games that season, and the Celtics would go 41-19 with him, and they would ultimately finish with a 55-27 record, good enough for second in the East. They were 14-8 without Kyrie in the regular season, but once the playoffs came around, this is when this narrative really started to gain steam, as the Celtics were able to beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round and take down the Philadelphia 76ers in the second round, and they almost got past the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James, but they would lose in 7 games. So that led a lot of people to think, well, if they had Kyrie, they probably would have made the finals. But this is kind of how this narrative started going, especially how the 2019 season progressed, as the Celtics went 49-33, and they had a really rocky season with a lot of chemistry issues, and they would ultimately lose in the second round, which would lead a lot of people to think, oh, the Celtics in 2018, they made the Eastern Conference Finals without Kyrie, but in 2019, they got out in the second round, so they must be better without Kyrie. But I'm here to tell you, it's not that simple. Basketball is not black and white, and there's a lot of gray area, and this really does fall into the gray area, because the 2019 Celtics, all those problems, those are not on Kyrie's shoulders. And I do really blame the media for starting this narrative. I mean, First Take, Undisputed, all of them had the narrative that the Celtics are somehow better without Kyrie.
And the reality is those guys, for whatever reason, this is not a value judgment on Kyrie, play better without him than they play with him.
Why can't the Celtics win a championship with this group without Kyrie? Because that could happen.
So let's talk about this. Kyrie Irving's gone. Wait. The Celtics are clearly better.
Yeah, way better.
And I do really blame the media for starting this narrative that the Celtics are somehow better without Kyrie, and that kind of led to a lot of chemistry struggles and a lot of in-house problems. I mean, you have Terry Rozier coming back, wanting to be a star, wanting to get paid. Jason Tatum, he wants to be a star after his 2018 playoff run, but he really regressed that season. Jaylen Brown being the odd man out with Gordon Hayward coming back from injury, and you have Marcus Morris coming off the bench who's really hungry for minutes. So you have a lot of players who really want to get shots, who really want to have the ball. So all these problems, they're not on Kyrie's shoulders. Brad Stevens also had a subpar game plan into the season. He started Gordon Hayward out of the gate when he really wasn't deserving of a starting spot for Jaylen Brown. So Brad Stevens, he has some of this responsibility to bear, and it's not all on Kyrie's shoulders. But if you just wanted to look at the 2018 playoffs and say, oh, they made the Eastern Conference Finals without Kyrie, but the next year they got in the second round. Oh, it's that simple. But as I said, it's not black and white. There is a gray area, and this does fall under that. And you have a lot of other contributing factors, mainly because the Milwaukee Bucks, they improved drastically because of Giannis. They have Chris Middleton and Eric Bledsoe, who also did improve in the regular season. And then you have the Philadelphia 76ers, who added Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. That was a definite upgrade. And then the Kawhi Leonard trade to Toronto, they really made the Raptors championship contenders. And I mean, one of the reasons this narrative did get started, the 2018 Eastern Conference, it was just so weak. I think it was the weakest Eastern Conference they had seen in about a decade. I think 2007 is definitely another weak Eastern Conference. And I think this narrative just stemmed from the Eastern Conference getting better and Kyrie and the Celtics getting worse. And that's as simple as I can make it. It's just kind of bad luck for Kyrie. But the media, it did not help by kind of perpetrating this narrative that the Celtics were somehow better without Kyrie. And if you've been watching the Brooklyn Nets closely and watching the media, they kind of started to try to get this narrative to go again, as the Nets went 9-3 without Kyrie in their first 12 games. And the media, they kind of started to bring back the old narrative, are the Nets better without Kyrie? And the only reason this narrative was silenced is because the Nets went 0-8 to start 2020. But I mean, if they would have kept winning, I guarantee you the media would have started pushing, are the Nets better without Kyrie? Is Kyrie a championship caliber player? And they would have started saying all this nonsense. The next ridiculous narrative I want to talk about is the Scottie Pippen save Michael Jordan argument. And this is one of the most ridiculous arguments. It lacks so much context. It honestly just hurts my head. And people who use this argument, you can really tell they don't know basketball. They don't really do research, because if you do the research, you can really debunk this narrative in about 2 seconds. So Scottie Pippen, he was drafted to the Bulls in 1988, and Michael Jordan, he was the best player on the Bulls that season. He averaged 35 points per game, which led the NBA, 3.2 steals, which also led the NBA, 5.9 assists, 5.5 rebounds, and he shot 53.5% from the field. And to cap that off, he won the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year. And up to that point, he was the first player in NBA history ever to do that. And to this day, he is one of only 4 players to ever accomplish that. So this is one of the greatest individual seasons of all time. But from the way people talk about this season and talk about Scottie Pippen, you would think he was some all-NBA player, all-defensive player right off the bat, and he kind of just took over Jordan's spotlight. But that is so far from reality. Scottie Pippen came in as a 22-year-old rookie, and he was the 7th leading scorer on the Bulls, averaging just under 8 points per game. And I would argue he wasn't even the most impactful rookie for Chicago. I would argue Horace Grant was actually the better rookie, because Horace Grant actually started 6 games to Scottie Pippen's 0. Yes, Scottie Pippen, he started 0 games in the regular season, but somehow he saved Michael Jordan's legacy, or saved him from being a playoff failure. In Michael Jordan's first season, he actually led the Bulls to the playoffs, which is very rare for a rookie to do. And once he got to the playoffs, he faced off against a 59-23 Bucks team that was led by Hall of Fame coach Don Nelson and Hall of Fame point guard Sidney Moncrief. and they were obviously going to beat this young, inexperienced Bulls team, and they did, beating them 3-1 in the first round. Now, the next year is pretty interesting because Michael Jordan, he actually did get injured, and he missed 60-plus games, and the doctors actually wanted to hold him out of the playoffs, but Michael Jordan, being the competitor that he was, he actually wanted to play against the Dynasty Boston Celtics in the first round, and he would not disappoint that series, averaging 43.7 points per game and having an NBA record 63 points in the Boston Garden. So Jordan did all he could in the 86 season, and he still couldn't overcome the Boston Celtics. And the same thing would happen in 1987. As the Bulls faced off against the Celtics in the first round again, Michael Jordan would average 36, 7, and 6, but they would fall to the Celtics. Now, the major difference in 1988, it wasn't Scottie Pippen, it wasn't Horace Grant. It was simply the fact that they were matched up against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were a good team, but they were not close to the Boston Celtics, and they weren't even close to the Milwaukee Bucks. And Jordan would lead the Bulls to a 3-2 victory over those Cleveland Cavaliers. Jordan would average 45 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. And if you want to compare him and Scottie stats-wise, Jordan averaged more points, more rebounds, more assists, more steals, and more blocks, while shooting a higher percentage from the field. So the narrative that Scottie Pippen somehow came in and saved Jordan, that is just completely false. And if you just take 5 seconds, go look at the game scores, the box scores, you'll realize Scottie Pippen, he had a minimal impact on the Bulls becoming a good team in the mid-80s, and he 100% did not save Michael Jordan. And even just looking at Jordan's first 3 seasons, it's super rare for a player in their rookie season or their sophomore season to even make the playoffs. So I mean, the 1-9 argument and the notion that Pippen saved Jordan, completely false, completely easily debunked, and I hope you guys realize that. And it really is one of the laziest narratives in the NBA community and in sports in general. And the last narrative I want to try to debunk is the narrative that Steph Curry somehow isn't a good finals performer, and this comes from his lack of finals MVPs. He does currently have 0, and we don't know if he'll ever get one. But I mean, if you want to take a deeper, in-depth look and just look at Steph Curry's finals, I can prove to you guys that he's not a choker and he does not underperform. And off the bat, let's just go to the 2016 finals, because we know that's where everyone likes to go, and everyone likes to point to that series to say Steph is not clutch, but he doesn't really show up. And I will agree, it was a pretty abysmal finals. Steph Curry for the series, he only averaged 23 points per game on 40% shooting. But I mean, if you want to take a more in-depth look, let's just look at the last 4 games of that series. Steph averaged 28 points per game on 38% shooting and 40% from 3. He was taking 14 threes per game, so that can't explain the field goal percentage. But I will admit, Steph Curry, he did underperform, and he did choke in the 7th game as he had the behind-the-back pass that is infamous, and it does still haunt Curry to this day that he made that pass. So I'm not going to make any excuses for that finals and Steph underperforming. But as you guys know, one playoff series does not define a player's career. So let's look at the 2015 finals, where Steph again was matched up against the Cavaliers. In this series, Steph averaged 26 points per game, 6 assists and 5 rebounds. That's pretty good stats. He also shot 44% from the field and 39% from 3. If you guys want to take a more in-depth look, Steph in this series, he only scored under 20 points in 1 game. That was in game 2 when they lost to the Cavaliers by 2 points. And shot an awful 5 for 22 from the field and 2 for 15 from 3. So that was definitely Steph's worst game of the series. But if you guys want to look at the last 3 games of the series, where the Warriors won 3 games in a row, I would say Steph, he was the catalyst behind that 3-game win streak, seeing as he averaged 28 points per game, 6 assists and 5 rebounds, and shot 49% from the field and 45% from 3, including 86% from the line. Now that is MVP Steph Curry right there, and I think he really should have won this Finals MVP over Andre Iguodala. I do understand the Warriors, they did win those 3 games and Andre Iguodala was inserted into the lineup. But I think Steph Curry, he was clearly the best player on the court. And the Finals MVP, it usually does go to the best player on the floor. And if you want to make the argument that Andre Iguodala, he somehow locked down LeBron James, and that's the reason he won the series, I would simply say, look at what LeBron did that series. In Game 1, he had 44 points. Game 2, 39 points. Game 3, 40 points. In Game 4, he was down to 20 points. But he bounced right back in Game 5 and scored 40. In the last game of this series, he had 32 points. So LeBron James, he really wasn't slowed down at all when talking about scoring. He also averaged 13 rebounds and 9 assists. But I wouldn't say Andre Iguodala, he really stopped LeBron James. LeBron James couldn't get any basket he wanted. So I think Steph Curry, he actually did deserve the 2015 Finals MVP. The next Finals I want to talk about is not the 2017 Finals. I think Kevin Durant, he rightfully deserved that Finals MVP. He averaged 35, 8, and 5, and he was absolutely ridiculous efficiency-wise. Steph did have an underrated Finals that series, averaging 27 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists. So that right there, it shows Steph he isn't some Finals choker, as he did put up a good performance in 2017. But the Finals I want to talk about is the 2018 Finals, where the Golden State Warriors swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. And in that series, Kevin Durant, he did come out with the Finals MVP. But the argument I want to make to you guys is that Steph Curry in that series, if you go game by game, he actually outplayed KD in 3 of the 4 games. The only game KD outplayed Steph in was Game 3, where Steph arguably had his worst playoff game ever. He had 11 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds, and he shot 19% from the field and 10% from 3. Obviously a terrible game, but if you look at the other 3 games in that series, Steph, I would argue, is better than KD if you look at the all-around resume in that series. Now, KD's average of that series, they are superior, but if you want to actually look at the in-depth analysis, Steph did outplay KD in 3 of those 4 games. So again, you could argue Steph deserved that Finals MVP over Kevin Durant. And I think Steph, I think he should have 2 Finals MVPs. I think it kind of is unjust that he won in 2015. I think 2018, you can argue Kevin Durant, he did deserve it, and I wouldn't really argue with that. So I think the notion that Steph is an underperformer or a choker in the finals, I think that it is overblown by the media and by fans on social media. You have the Russell Westbrook fans always trying to tear Steph Curry down. And Steph Curry, in my opinion, he's the undisputed best point guard of the 2010s. Some would argue for Kyrie or Westbrook, but I really don't see the case. Steph Curry, he has more hardware than all of them, and he just put up better numbers, and he was the more impactful player overall. So there you have it. Those are the 3 laziest narratives in the NBA community. And if you see someone using these narratives, and all 3 of these narratives can be easily debunked with just some common sense logic and some easy research, it really only takes about 10 to 15 minutes to debunk all these. And for people who just watch TV sports and TV personalities, I mean, these narratives, they are really easy to buy into. But if you want to be a more quote-unquote hardcore fan and kind of do the research, you will find that these narratives, they are easily debunked. But I just wanted to show you guys all 3 of these narratives. They really don't hold any weight and they aren't true at all. So again, thank you guys for watching.